Hello, everybody. My name is Keith. I'm one of the teachers at Sonic Yoga. I'm also the manager of Sonic Yoga on behalf of Lauren Hanna, who's the founder, and we may get a surprise visit from her during this brief call today. Hello. And so we have a really broad subject for this IG Live. It's the roots of yoga. And the reason we're talking about the roots of yoga is because I think it's really very valuable to check in once in a while and kind of ask ourselves, why is it that we're doing what we're doing? You know, we come to classes at the studio or maybe we practice at home virtually, and we're doing these hour-long practices and we're doing largely and almost exclusively yoga poses. So what's that about? What's it leading to? And do we have our eye, if you will, set on the purpose and the direction that we're meant to be going when we practice yoga postures? So yoga postures have lately been framed as almost an end in themselves. Like, you do yoga postures to do yoga postures because you'll look better, you'll be fitter, you'll be leaner, and maybe it's fun, maybe it's a social activity in a sense because you like the yoga community, because there's a general vibe of like trying to do things in an intentional and kind way as we develop our bodies, but still it becomes something that is essentially, you know, something that's confined to being seen and being experienced as an activity, meaning the activity is going to have a beginning and it's going to have an end. And the beginning of the activity is when you lay out your mat, and the end of the activity is when you roll up your mat. And that, I'm afraid, is exercise. Now, not a thing wrong with exercising, of course, but yoga postures and the practice of yoga, whether you practice the postures or breathing techniques or meditation, whatever it is, it's about something that's much, much deeper than an activity, and is meant to have an effect that lasts actually much longer than an activity. When we do an activity, what it tends to do is occupy our minds and our bodies, our thoughts, for, you know, the time that we're doing the activity. And maybe there's a little bit of an afterglow, and there should be an afterglow, even if we're talking about non-yogic exercises. Of course, there's going to be an afterglow. The thing is, that afterglow will then fade. And our solution is, I need to take another yoga class, or I need to get back on my bike, or I need to get back on the rock climbing wall, whatever it is. So that's one thing, and that's a good thing. But there's something much more available to us when we practice yoga. What is there for the taking? If we practice daily, if we practice diligently, and really more importantly, if we practice with our mind set on a certain intention, then the afterglow not only lasts, but it actually continues to build. And we actually find that what we're doing is really changing the way our mind operates, changing also the way our physical body operates, changing the way we sleep, changing the way we treat others, changing the way we treat ourselves. This is what really should be taking place in a practice of yoga. So what Lauren, the founder of Sonic Yoga, and I have started to become a little bit concerned about is that the classes are short and they're quick, and we certainly hope and believe they're very satisfying, but maybe we've gone too far in trying to make the practice as convenient as possible for people into an area where what we're actually doing is reinforcing this notion that yoga is merely an activity. And I see that Lauren has joined us, and I hope she'll chime in soon and ask to be part of this. There she is. So we can get her in here quickly and get maybe a bit of a sound check going. Let's see. Yep, there she is. So that's what the conversation is about, and the conversation lately has turned into like, let's get into a practice. There's Lauren. What beautiful locale is Lauren Hanna in now? Can you hear me, Lauren?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Barely. It's pretty choppy. It looks like our founder's in an exotic location. Is she?
I'm in Malibu,
Oh, that's pretty
California.
exotic. To me, it is. I'm from a small town. I live in New York City, so that's very exotic to me.
Yeah, it's pretty beautiful, but it's we got the marine layer in this morning, so it's
Yeah.
foggy and cold, but in a couple of hours it'll be like sunny and beautiful.
Great.
So California for you.
Right. Wow. Ever changing.
Oh, look. Jaya tuned in. Hi, Jaya.
Nice.
My daughter.
Yeah, we've got some really good participation today. So
Hi, Eunice. I remember Eunice was my surf coach from back in the day when I used to do my Moroccan
yeah,
surf retreats.
you used to tell me about her.
Taksout
Yeah,
in Morocco.
yeah.
No, he's
Oh,
a
Guy.
guy.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Different
Oh,
person.
okay.
Hey, Jaya.
Yeah. So how are we
So what
doing
are we
today, Lauren?
talking about? I'm doing great. Yeah, we just had a beautiful Easter here on the ranch and with some family, taking some family time. It's my daughter's holiday from school. We came out to see the family, and it's really nice.
All right, good. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
How about you?
Doing well. On the call with all our friends, and I'm glad to be back. I had to skip one of these recently, and I'm sorry about that. So I'm very glad to be back and see such an audience. You're pretty choppy, Lauren, and so is your voice. So do you want me to pick it up?
Oh,
Yeah, it
really?
is. So, I mean, you could try again, maybe from a slightly different part of the house or something, or maybe I should take it.
Let me see. Yeah,
Sure.
hold on a second. You
Yeah,
just go. I'm going to
for
see if
sure.
I can go outside.
So,
Maybe if I go
yeah.
outside. But I have to get some blankets and stuff. It's a little chilly. So
All
I'm going
right.
to leave and then I'll bring back in.
Okay. Sweet. Sounds
I don't
good.
know how to leave
Okay.
though. Oh, I think. Yes.
Okay. So we're back, everybody. That's the founder, and she's in Malibu. So connections maybe not so hot. Okay. So the thing is, following off what I was saying, what are we going to do? Like, so what? Okay, what are we going to do now? We should stop taking classes? Is that what I'm saying? Certainly, that's not what I'm saying. One of the things that we're trying to do at Sonic Yoga is create longer practices and also create a way for people to get into meditative practices more regularly with us. And we're going to do a little bit of that today, I think. So I hope you'll stick with us a few more minutes because we've been trying recently to get into practices we can offer on this call. And one of the things that's most important to me that we get out of this call, like however many people have showed up today, 5 or 50, let's hear from you. Let's hear from you about how we could serve your practice of meditation, how we could serve to support you in getting into practices on your own a little bit too, so that what you're doing with the techniques that you're learning in classes, you are able to apply to maybe some very short self-practice each morning when you wake up. Guidance is extremely important. There's no question about that. But anytime we're taking a sonic yoga class or we're doing some other platform and getting into some classes, I know some people on this call right now, they're very physically active and they do a lot of different activities. But once we have that going, like what can we do with that beyond just kind of waiting for the next practice to be offered? Like what can we do? And some practices that I think are really extremely powerful are really just waking up in the morning. Hopefully you're waking up naturally very early because you sleep well and you go to bed at a sensible hour, because how you go to bed has everything to do with how you're waking up in the morning. And so a lot of times people look at the practice of meditation and they may think to themselves, well, I've tried and it's very hard. And so I gave up because I was very frustrated. Or they'll say, yeah, I'm getting into meditation lately because I'm listening to an app and the app is helping me meditate. All of those things are very, very, very good, of course, but they're also keeping us tethered to something outside of ourselves where we are not necessarily taking hold of like the power that we potentially have. Lauren, there you are. There you
I don't
are.
know. Can you hear me? Okay, good.
Massively better. Yeah, massively better. Yeah. Yep. Good. So here's what we're talking about, Lauren. Isn't it the case that the way we go to bed, the sort of sleep hygiene we have and the habits we take on in the evening have everything to do with how we're going to wake up in the morning and how that's going to feel and how much time we feel we'll have in the morning for ourselves and what we might be able to do for ourselves each day rather than just wake up and get immediately caught up in what's kind of happening or what feels like is kind of happening to us. So right. Yeah. So
and also my my shaman Renee always talks about how you feed yourself, and he doesn't mean only with food, but like energetically. So like, if you are watching, like, The Last of Us before you go to sleep, I don't know if you know that show, or something like that, like that's going to, you're going to take that in. And if that's the last impression that you have before you close your eyes, or something very stressful that you're working on your computer, or if you go to sleep with worrying about something, with some stress on your mind, financial worry or something about work, that that's all going to go into the unconscious. It's going to affect the way that you sleep. It's going to affect the way that you rise. So actually, what's happening in your consciousness before you close your eyes is really important in many ways, right?
It's hugely important. And the thing is, if we try to start a new way of practicing, a new way of applying the techniques we've learned in classes, if we try to start in the morning, it might feel kind of frustrating or impossible or just out of our character a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to start our morning with, we need to walk it back a little bit to how we go to bed at night, and exactly what you say, what we're feeding ourselves. And that has everything to do with like what we're taking in, as you mentioned, not just in terms of food and drink, but content. And we've gotten way off the rails with that, right? Because we not only have the internet and coming through our phones, but we also have things like The Last of Us that we're trying to stay up with and stuff like that. And then the day gets later and later because more and more responsibilities come in. Mm-hmm. And to me, one of the most powerful times to practice yoga, where it just feels like, this is very appropriate. Early in the morning is one of those times, and I think that's the more well-known time. But in the evening, late in the evening, these things that we can do if we're willing to get quiet and maybe light a candle as our only light source rather than electric light, and turn off the phone. And, we can engage in japa meditation at that time, which is where you would take a mala and you would count through the 108 beads and repeat a mantra along with doing that. That's a very simple way of doing it. There's some candle meditations that one can do too, but there's just sitting tall and closing the eyes and taking in and really observing the state of our being in that moment. How is our breath? What does our heart rate seem like it is? Do we feel the tension in the neck and the shoulders? If we just take a check-in like that and then go to sleep, it's going to make all the difference in the world. And we're going to wake up in the morning feeling like, I have bandwidth. I can actually see how it's possible that I could engage in some self-practice before anything else happens. And that's where it all begins, for me in a way. It's like it actually begins at night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
that's a hard one, though.
It's a very hard one. And because, the thing is, as you well know, we both work with private clients a lot. You start suggesting these things, and what you'll always get, I'm waving to people, what you'll always get is the pushback of like, yeah, but I have this, and yeah, but I have that, and yeah, but if this happens, and then this happens. And the thing is, what we're always hearing, you and I, is that people are doing things that are their responsibilities. They're upholding their responsibilities, which is so very, very important. But what that leads to quite quickly, and people with the best of intentions really get swept away in it, is that when you are always doing for others and not doing for yourself, you don't have anything left in the tank to do that help for others that is so important to you. You don't have the strength to be there to uphold these responsibilities that you hold so dear. So in a way, I think with the Western mindset, it's kind of counterintuitive to kind of try to shut everything out around you and really go within and focus on only doing something that's for yourself. It seems, I think, sometimes to the Western mind, like a selfish activity, or an activity that is just not going to be prioritized because what about my kids? What about my mom? What about my job? What about, all of that, right?
Right, but ultimately, the ultimate goal, right, of yoga is to transcend so that we can then serve others in a better way, right? So it's almost like a microcosm of it in our own life, where if we are spending time in, connecting to source and going more into our parasympathetic, going more into that relaxed state, finding more peace, more serenity, then we are able to serve our friends and our family and our job and everything else. I mean, there's all sorts of scientific research that proves that we're more efficient, we're more clear, we function better. You know, there's so many important benefits that we get when we prioritize self-care. It's just like, it's a no-brainer, but for some reason, it's just hard to do. I don't know why.
It's very hard to do. And, you know, self-care, like, how does that, like, come to you immediately? When you think of self-care, do you think of something that's, like, more ceremonial? Or do you think something that's more like literal? Because I think there's a couple ways to look at it that kind of draws certain people in, and others are more drawn more easily into, like, well, I will do this. Whereas for some, I think the ceremony is pretty critical. And I think you and I are on the same page with that. Like, ceremony, I know it's important to both of us. Like, I know that you and I find it very important to have an altar at home, right? I'm not wrong about that, am I, Lauren?
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah. So why, you know, what is it? Like, how could we explain, like, quickly, like, why an altar in one's home is important? Do you want to take a stab at that?
Well, because it's an anchor, you know, it anchors you. You know, one of the critical steps to finding a more equanimous, balanced, contented existence is, the first step is always to ground. Because if we're not grounded, then we can't, everything else turns into chaos. So the most important step always first, and that's why the root chakra is all about grounding, the first chakra, right? The energy is about connecting to the earth, because the earth is our teacher, ultimately, in yoga. Everything that's been taught through the yoga philosophies comes from, you know, observing nature, right? So the earth is the most important thing, grounding, being connected, being rooted. And an altar it just creates an anchor in your home for your practice. It's a physical place you can go, and even if you don't go there, you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my altar I can see from my bed. So when I wake up in the morning, it's sitting right there, and it's calling me, right? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I have multiple altars all throughout my home. So, you know, just different little ones, because I want to be reminded all day that life is a sacred experience, right? Mm-hmm. And so every time I take a look at Ganesha, or I take a look at Saraswati sitting on my laundry basket, every time I put my laundry in, it reminds me. So I think, ultimately it roots you into the practice and brings you into the moment, you know?
Absolutely. Beautifully said. I would echo that. And I think the other thing about it that's kind of interesting, especially when, you know, when you live in an apartment, which a lot of our members do at Sonic Yoga, you have such limited space. And when you decide to take a piece of that space and say, this is for this reason, this is for purification, this is for grounding, this is it's really an act, you know, like, as we both know, there's the thought, but then there's the act. And if you don't take the action and you always just have the thought, it just kind of starts to keep closing in on itself and nothing really goes anywhere. You have to take the action. So if one takes a slice of their home, their literal home that shelters them, keeps them safe, that they can return to, you know, and you say, this is for this reason and this reason alone. I'm not going to look at it as like, well, this tool or this file cabinet fit here and I need space for this and that. You're saying, no, this space is for a higher reason. And so when you set aside that space, I think something really interesting kind of happens, where you feel like a little bit of a pull toward that space as you move around your space. It's a reminder. It's like, oh yeah, that thing that's more important, I now remember, because I see it sitting there and I kept it clean and I kept it in a way alive. And that's an interesting thing I think about altars too. Like, so what is it? What if one is not that familiar with the gods and goddesses? You know, what if one isn't in touch with the teacher that's given them a gift of a representation of a deity that they can place on a shelf or a windowsill or something? Like, what are some things that make up an altar that are really simple and really elemental? And you mentioned the earth, and, you know, like, something something that, I know what also you and I both like to do is keep plants and take care of them and watch them flourish and have that representation of the earth and growth and something that's reacting to the sunlight that keeps us alive. So, to make an altar, to me, I think it starts with clearing a space and making sure that nothing goes on that space that's not intentional. So, for instance, if you have a windowsill or a little shelf that you can clear off or something, you would never put your cup of coffee down on that, right? I mean, it's like these little things that are really mostly about intention. So you can put a plant, you can put a bowl of very clean water. And I think, Lauren, if you want to talk about why we might do that, that'd be amazing because you'll do a better job than I will. But you can light a candle. We're looking to have like representation of these really elemental forces. And just that can be something that's like very, very powerful. And I'll let you pick up from there.
Well, I do have a lot to say about altars, but I also have to say goodbye to my cousin at 10.
Okay.
I'm here at my family's
Yeah,
home, and
yeah.
it's 9:52, and we need to do a little
Oh,
practice.
let's do it.
So
God,
we
this is
lost
our
track,
practice. We're
but
going to teach people to have an
Keith and I
altar.
will be back next week, and we can spend the whole session talking about an altar.
Okay.
And if you cannot wait until next week, I happen to have a workshop that I recorded on how to create an altar. So if you would like that, you can DM Keith or I, and I will send you a link to that workshop. But anyway, I think it's a good conversation to pick up on next week. Yeah, let's pick up on it next week. So come back next Monday, 12:30, and Keith and I will elaborate a little bit more on an altar. So we only have about 7 minutes, and since Keith was talking about doing japa, and most of us probably don't have a mala with us at this moment.
Right.
But my teacher Shiva taught me this beautiful practice, which is super simple, where we use the spine as a mala. Right, so many of you know about the chakra system, right? And we're going to work with the first 6 points. So Muladhara, the base of the pelvic floor, is the first point. Right between the 2 pelvic points, where the sacrum is, like below, a few inches below your navel, is the second point. The third point is right above the navel, right? The fourth point is the heart. The fifth is your throat. And the sixth is the midbrain, the third eye. So what we do is we use the chakras as little points and imagine them as mala beads. And each time we pass over those points, we recite the mantra. And so we're not going to have time right now to do the whole 108, but if you know your math, if you have 6 points, let me get this right. 6 times 10 is 60, 6 times 8 is 48, and you do 18 rounds, then you will have done 108, right? Mantras. So what we'll do is we're just going to start doing 1 mantra at each chakra from 1 to 6, and we'll do 18 just to get a taste of how it can work. And this is something that you can do either when you wake up in the morning, while you're lying in bed, or at night, as we were talking about earlier, before you go to sleep, right? So you can do a few rounds of japa up and down your spine. If you happen to have a mala, feel free to use your mala, but we don't always, need to have the equipment. We can always just work with our own inner mala, and that will allow us to just be in the most pure, simple state when we go into our practice. So let's just come to a place where we can close our eyes and bring the awareness to our breath. And then start to visualize the central channel of your spine, the Sushumna Nadi line. This is the pathway that takes us from darkness to light. And along the spine lie these sacred energy centers. So we'll visualize the first center at the base, at the pelvic floor. The second center just below the navel point, in front of the sacrum. The third point is above the navel. The fourth is at the heart. The fifth at the throat. And the sixth at the level of the third eye in the midbrain. And so we'll work with a very simple mantra. We'll work with Om Shanti. So Om is the primordial sound of the universe, the sound of Vishvara, essentially the sound of Brahman, the sound of all that is, right? The source, whatever you believe that is. And Shanti directly translates to mean peace or ease. So we'll start at the base at Muladhara, and we'll repeat the sound Om Shanti. We'll move to the sacrum, Om Shanti. We'll move to the navel, Om Shanti. The heart, Om Shanti. Throat, Om Shanti. And the third eye, Om Shanti. And that's one round. And we'll come back to the base, Om Shanti. The sacrum, Om Shanti. The navel, Om Shanti. The heart, Om Shanti. The throat, Om Shanti. And the midbrain, Om Shanti. 2 rounds. Come back to the base, pelvic floor, Om Shanti. Sacrum, Om Shanti. Navel, Om Shanti. Heart, Om Shanti. Throat, Om Shanti. Midbrain, Om Shanti. And you can take a big breath in and a big breath out. If you feel like you need a little more grounding, take a few more breaths in through your nose. And you can breathe out through your mouth. And so, yeah, Om Shanti, such a powerful vibrational transmission, sends you into a beautiful state of ease and grace and stillness. And so that would be a beautiful way just to come back to our initial topic. It would be a beautiful way to send yourself off to sleep, right? Yep. Peace, peace, peace. These interesting kind of dreams you have and how you feel when you wake up in the morning. So give it a try, do an experiment, and let us know. Let us know how it goes.
Indeed. Send us a DM. Let us know what you're thinking, okay? Thanks, everybody. And also maybe Google a chakra chart if you never have done that and look at it. Just start looking at a chart of these energetic centers in your body. Just start looking. It's really fascinating.
More to come. More to come.
Yes. Thank you,
Stay
Lauren.
tuned. You're going to... Well, we got 5,000 years of information to share with you guys. So, Keith and I'll be here, and we'll both be like 108, and we'll still be rambling on about yoga and meditation.
Good idea.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Namaste.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. See you next time.